Who would like to start with a question to get the ball rolling with what's happening in the market right now? Just give me a quick wave so I can see you on the Zoom screen. So I've got a couple of screens. Oh, so we'll start off with Julian. So Julian, I'm just going to unmute you, okay? Oh, perfect. Great.
Okay.
Perfect.
My question is, given that land securities are currently only collecting 29% of their rent, when we come off furlough at the end of October, are we facing a major rental income crisis from the public?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, a very relevant question, in fact, mentioned by Julian there. So shall we start off with Marion for that question?
The answer is yes. There is a gate crash waiting to happen, or a train crash waiting to happen. Not only, I mean, you're talking more about commercial and the larger portfolio holders, but I think as well the other very, very vulnerable group at the moment is the workers in the hospitality industry who tend to be under 35. So they've been probably earning quite well and been able to pay their rents on flats quite easily. But as soon as they're actually made redundant and go on to benefits, they will only qualify for the single room rate. So I think they're the group that as landlords we have to watch. I think the government is trying to help other older people, families. They've immediately stepped in and increased the local housing allowance rate for universal credit. So there's a safety net there. But I think if you've got the younger, I don't call, and probably a lot of you don't call somebody who's 33, 34 young, but they from a rental market, if they're made redundant, they are, and they're single, they're the very vulnerable group there as well. So yes, I would say there is a train crash waiting to happen, because our Chancellor said he can't rescue everybody. And there's going to be casualties, and there's no rescue for landlords. There's no safety net for landlords.
Okay, thank you for your perspective there, Marion. Craig, what do you think of Julian's question?
So I'm going to disagree a bit with Marion. So firstly, as Marion mentioned, land securities are dealing mainly with commercial, and I think I would have been more surprised.
Sorry, Craig, just sorry to interrupt you just slightly there. Could you just clarify for someone who's brand new what land securities might be, just so it's not the...
Yeah, so land securities is a huge builder and developer and renter of commercial properties. So if you see a skyscraper going up in London, when I was in the cities, you quite often see, built by XYZ firm for land securities. So when you've got huge skyscrapers, lots of commercial property that you're renting out, you're at the absolute cutting edge of not collecting rent during this period of time. A lot of that money that they haven't collected was probably done by arrangement and agreement as well. For example, I mean, my wife runs a dancing school. First thing she did when she shut was say, can I have a 3-month break from my rent and pay it back over an extended period of time? And he agreed. So there's two things here. Number one, I think land securities will probably claw a lot of that money back when the economy starts to bounce back. But going back to, are we headed for a train crash? I can completely understand why Marion feels, and lots of you will feel, that we are headed for a train crash. And I think we are headed for a slightly more difficult time, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as people think. My reasons why are that if you look at the job losses that we've had, it's mainly across things like hospitality, retail, fairly low-paid jobs. I'm not being disparaging to those people at all, because I started off in retail myself, but they're in relatively low-paid employment, and it's a relatively mobile set of employment as well. It's the sort of employment where you see people go from job to job. And I think that as the economy rebounds, and it is rebounding a bit quicker than expected according to the Bank of England, a lot of those jobs are going to be recreated. So yes, we are going to hit more difficult times with rent, Julian. I don't doubt that. I just don't think it's going to be as bad as people think it is. As a landlord myself, across myself, me and my dad's properties, we own over 20 properties. I don't know if it's just me being lucky, but most of the properties that I own are in Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle, my rents have been coming in absolutely fine. Okay, my tenants, some of them may have been furloughed, but overall, I've not seen any adjustment to my rents yet. Whether that continues once furlough's taken away, I've not got a crystal ball, but I just don't think it's going to be as bad as people think, because what we're losing off of jobs now, as the economy rebounds, we're going to be building jobs again.
Perfect. Thank you, Crave. And Cam, your perspective, please.
So I'm going to share with you the investor's perspective, as we're on the cutting edge of the, we're just investors and developers. And using the analogy of the train crash, I think Marian's absolutely right. There is a train crash about to happen, and we've got to be aware of where the economy is going. Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, he's already said that we're heading into a recession. The 20.1% GDP drop, the fall in that, of course, that's going to happen because everyone was locked in. No one was working out there. So all of that is already confirmed. So we are heading for a train crash. However, what I would, as an investor, what we really need to focus on using that analogy is who's actually driving the train. And who's driving the train is you. So the benefit that, you have, all of us have, to be fair, because the people I'm speaking to is you earning your income in your tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, or maybe like us, is a few million. We're not billionaires. We're talking about your own financial freedom and creating your own financial freedom. And my point is that, okay, a really good question asked, by the way, Julian, it's good to see you, and a really good question asked. Land securities, large organizations like that, hedge funds and so on, they are not as nimble as you are. They cannot make key decisions quickly as you can. So I'll share with you a exact example. So of course we all face lockdown, and of course the more properties you've got, the more tenants you've got if you're holding the properties, and the larger the situation. So when lockdown happened, the first thing I did, this is before any announcements between the government or anything like that, as soon as lockdown happened, and tenants, we knew that they weren't going to pay, the first thing I did was I got my trusted advisors around me. So the 5 people, I mentor people, many people here I mentor. I've also got mentors, trusted guides, and we sat down and said, we didn't sit down. It was a phone call conversation. What are you doing with your portfolio? What are you doing? How are you going to mitigate these circumstances? And after discussing this with my, five closest people, and you got to be nimble on this. Moving forward, we got to be nimble and sharp, driving that train. So what we decided was to make sure that we create a simple system where with every letting agent that we've got portfolios with, that we wanted to make sure that the rent came in. So we created a simple spreadsheet, but a very effective spreadsheet straight away. And as soon as in the spreadsheet, what we had was the tenant's name, rent due date, and when we're expecting the rent to come in from the letting agent, because there's a bit of a lag there. So what we want to know is not the rent coming in from the letting agent, because that's pretty safe, but is more about, is the tenant paid? So we got it down to literally when is the rent payment due date, and when have they paid that date? And we were really on it. And what we found was, by just making that phone call, we found that 80% of our tenants were actually paying. 20% weren't paying because they didn't really hear what the government was saying about payment holidays and so on. So once we explained to them that the payment holiday actually means that you still got to pay the rent, you still got to actually come up with a coffers at some point, a number of them said, oh, okay, didn't realize that, and they paid the rent. We were then, I've actually got the exact numbers for this because I feel like me, you're a bit like number kind of person. I like numbers, like to work on the analysis. And then we got to around 90% of our rents paid. Now, the further 10%, we actually, we want to be fair with people because we've got to remember we're in the business with people, aren't we? Would you agree, team? We're with people. Just give us a nod. Yeah, we're dealing with people, right? It's a business, but we are dealing with human beings. And, then we said to the rest of the 10% is, okay, so what is your challenge? Can you demonstrate, can you show us that this month you've had a challenge? Because obviously they hadn't, because it just actually had been announced. So they'd had their money coming in. So once we asked for some, certain documents and a bank statement, prove to us that you need a payment holiday, The next 5 to 7%, around 7%, said, oh, well, we'll actually pay you. That left, 3 to 5%. I've got the exact figures in my office here, but 3 to 5% were left. And out of those 3 to 5%, we actually had conversations with them and said, what is your challenge? How can we help you? How can we make a payment plan? And that's exactly what we did. So the money still comes in. Now, moving forward, driving your train, what we're going to do. So these are some of the things that we are applying at Premier Property. Because, Mary's absolutely right. You've got to be conscious of this. You can't have your head stuck in the sand. You've got to be aware of what's going on. So what we're doing now moving forward is making sure that the tenants that we've got in, we're assessing their situations. Who's working, who's not working. Typically, and your letting agents, they'll help you with this. So got to be careful of GDPR and all of that. But who's working, who's not paying. You get a guide. You get a guide of the scenario of the type of tenant you've got. And we're also making sure that we're de-risking by making sure that we're in different areas. So universal credit is really happening, because the way I look at universal credit is like a long-term bond from the government coming to you, where you know that you're going to be getting paid because of the universal credit. So we're switching some to that. We're also buffering in, factoring in new tenancies. Who are we taking on? Making sure that they can pay. Just being a little bit more rigorous with that that assessment. And yeah, I mean that's what we're doing going forward. So, and you can do this. Land securities can't. It's too big. They are massive. Too many people in the cogs. Too many people to make a decision. You can be nimble and sharp and make a decision.
Perfect. Thank you for those answers to Julian's question. Julian, hopefully that answered your question, so it gives you a bit more clarity on the market right now and where we're heading. Next up, so who shall we ask next for the questions? Just raise your hand for me. There's a couple of screens here. Just going to give some shout outs to people in the cave. So David, Mitchells, Omar, Ali, Aldis, David, Balbir, Tina, and Derek. At any point, if you feel like coming out of the cave, feel free. It will be lovely to see you here during this lockdown. Okay, so Nick, I believe, Nick, you've got a question. So let's just unmute Nick. Go for Nick.
Yeah, so a question that I would ask is, obviously, big one at the moment is stamp duty. So how is stamp duty really going to affect the property market? Is it going to profit up for a certain period until that support drops off, and then it's going to, so yeah, how is stamp duty really going to, or the abolishment of the stamp duty really going to affect the property market?
I think that's a great question from Nick. So how is the abolishment of stamp duty going to affect the property market? So let's start with Craig for that one.
Yeah, so I can give you quite a straight answer on this, Nick, but first of all, let me say that if the train crash or the difficult times come once furlough finishes, it's likely to be autumn time. So by putting in this stamp duty holiday until March, I think it's quite a shrewd move from the Chancellor, because what he's doing is he's saying, I'm going to try and drive this market through that period of time. What I've seen already is that the market's gone absolutely berserk. So some of our bigger investors have basically, they've been on the phone saying to us, whilst I've got a cut in stamp duty, because remember, investors are still paying the extra 3%, but not the original bit. So their stamp duty is still getting cut. I've got lots of people, first-time buyers. I've got a lot of home movers under that 500 level, jumping straight on the boat and getting out there. And interestingly, the top of the market as well, people buying at 950, 1 million, 1.2 million, are still saving on stamp duty. So to give you a short, sharp answer, Nick, is that I think it's going to drive the market hard. I was already seeing very strong activity levels the minute we came out of lockdown. It got very, very busy, and now it's just got even busier. I'm doing 14, 15-hour days at the moment just to get all the quotes out. So it's exceptionally busy. I don't see that slowing down, and I think that this is another indicator to me that the economy is going to rebound a bit stronger than people think it will.
Okay, perfect, Craig. Thank you. Marion, what are your thoughts on Nick's question?
Again, a very, very good question. I think sort of taking it slightly further as well. We've been talking about the job opportunities, the train crash, and there will be a lot of investors. There will be the people that can get the mortgages and the finance that Craig is talking about. But I think again with the Chancellor now doing the build to get better, he wants there to be a building boom. He wants people to be spending money. I think there will be now a lot of people, the first-time buyers will be coming in now, as long as they've got the good credit ratings and they can get that now through renting. They'll be coming in to get the first-time buyers, which will then be propping up the market, and people then will be able to jump up the markets as they go. I'm still not sure about what will happen in March when the stamp duty then comes back in. He could well extend that again. You know, he could create a bubble of people rushing. When we've had stamp duty land tax charges before and changes before, people didn't quite make that March deadline, but there was a huge push to get the properties invested before the 3% surcharge went on. So I'm sure he's going to be mindful of what happened last time round, and just be interesting to watch and see how that develops. But that will be my concern as to what happens when it goes back on.
Perfect. Thank you, Mario.
Can I just add a quick point?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Someone who's actually been a speaker on here, I won't mention his name, but he's invested in a little buy-to-let down in Gravesend at the moment. So this weekend he booked 4 viewings to go and look at 4 houses, and all 4 sold before he got a chance to look at. That was this weekend, and we're seeing that around the markets. 4 weeks ago, my dad put a house on the market in Benfleet. He had 20 viewings in 5 days and 4 offers. So that gives you a little bit of a flavour of how busy things are getting out there.
Perfect. Thank you, Craig. And Cam, your thoughts on Nick's original question, and then I'll follow up with a part question.
So stamp duty, I mean, everything that's been said, to be fair, I can marry into that. It makes sense. Right now, my view is that the economy is really being propped up. The property investing economy is really being propped up in the fact that, first of all, there are investors who are understanding that property is really good because the mortgage rates are so low, which we're all aware of. So people are looking at, you know, where do they put their money? You know, whether they are, you know, investors like you who are actually really working on it as an entrepreneur, or, you know, there's other people that just got money sitting in the bank and think, where do we put that money? We're earning 0.2%. Let's put it in property. We'll get a 7% yield. You know, so it's just a simple calculation that they're doing. So they just point that money in just like that. So that is helping to prop the market up. Rishi Sunak, Chancellor of Exchequer, he's definitely done his bit to prop the market up. My view is right now it's an overheated market. Now, Marion and I definitely know this. We've been through, I've known Marion for over 12 years now, actually. 12 years Marion has been through. Right? And, you know, we've been through, I've personally been through 3 recessions in my life. And I'm sure Craig's been through maybe one, he's so young. And, you know, Marion, would you agree that you've been through a couple?
Yeah, I mean, I've been investing since 1974, so I'm sure some of the people on here weren't even born in 1974. So I have been through, and in '74 we all had sitting tenants, so there wasn't a buy-to-let market then. You were investing commercially, and
Nappies then, but anyway.
Yes.
But yeah, hey, so you've seen a few recessions. So what is my point? My point is, this happens every time in every recession is what I've noticed. The process is always exactly the same, team. However, the method is always different. So this time around, we've got a different type of recession coming up, and it is coming up. So what I say to the deal sources that I train, they're going out there and saying, oh, look, the market is so heated. What I always say to people that train is that, you know, and we're doing this ourselves, is always hedge the market. Be hedging the market right now. You don't want to be paying top dollar. Make sure you make your numbers work. And whether there's a stamp duty discount or not, we'll come to that. I'm going to ask this question as well. But whether there is that or not, you know, you got to be hedging the market. You got to be buying well. You got to be buying well. Let's see what happens over the next 6 months to 9 months. You know, those people are being a little bit too gung-ho, not checking the numbers, not putting a little bit of gentle effort into it. I think, unfortunately, they're going to be probably negative equity potentially. When I started back in 1989, that's what happened to my first property. I didn't know what I was doing in property at that time, and that's what happened. We just bought a property, and then it fell in value. It was negative equity. Yeah, but okay. 29 years further along, I'm just sharing with you, just practicality from my viewpoint. So right now, summarizing is, it's a heated market. You want to be buying well. You want to be using the mortgage rates to your advantage, as we have them right now. We all know they're the lowest ever that they've ever been. So that's a real godsend. And in terms of stamp duty, my view is that if you have one property already, whether it's your residential or an investment, you're going to find that between £0 to £125,000, there is absolutely no change for you. It's exactly the same as it was last week. So there's no change. And between £125,001, feel free to write this down if you wish, £125,001 to £250,000, you are comparatively saving a further £2,500. Between the £250,001 to 500,000, if you're purchasing up to the 500,000 level, you are saving in that bracket a further £12,500 if you purchase at 500,000. So comparatively to what was happening a couple of weeks ago to what Rishi Sunak has now announced, if you are purchasing up to 500,000, you are making that discount in those two brackets. So in effect, up to 500K with one property already under your belt, you are saving £15,000 in comparison. So what do we do at Premier Property? Well, we use that, and you can do this. You can use this as a given discount already by the government. So just putting the entrepreneurial side of things, so you can factor that in. That's £15,000. And you can use that to your advantage. So strategies, for example, like, so we've got 3 areas. One is London, one is around Marion's areas in Kent, Medway Towns and so on. So we invest there. And we also invest in the Midlands. All completely different countries, to be fair. Feels like it anyway, sometimes. And what we're finding is that, right now, in the realms of where you're over the 125 to 500,000, you can now be finding properties which you can buy, which you can sell. The stamp duty is really helping you, provided you do it between now and the 31st of March 2021. Who knows what's going to happen after that? So you got that time frame. If you are into HMOs, for example, and you're looking at property prices over the 125, marrying into the up to that 500,000, anywhere between that, you're going to absolutely get another discount. So it becomes really cost effective. But I would still share with you, with stamp duty is great. However, come March 2021, and I think Craig touched on this, Marion touched on this as well, what you may find is that that stamp duty, discount isn't there anymore, and investors get a reality check. So I'll be very interested to see what happens right after 1st of April onwards, 2021. And people like you here right now, listening in, sharing your comments and asking questions, you are the ones that are going to be really proactive and still safe. Out there, people are going to lose money. Let's be honest. So that's come March 2021. There's even better discounts to be had, and right now we're building in the discounts. That's how we're looking at stamp duty. There's two elements of it. I
think that the great points there, especially when it came to the numbers of breaking down purchases of 125 up to 500, etc., and knowing how much you can save on your second property. Nick, hopefully that answered your question. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, perfect.